Okay, we're going to start now our unit on ancient China, and our first section is going to devote itself to the geography of China and all the landforms that China has. We're starting out with the dragon, and we all know that the dragon is very much synonymous or symbolizes China, Chinese culture. But did you know that the dragon is really a respected spirit? And according to the Chinese people, dragons bring luck. And as you can see through the shape of the dragon, that it does symbolize rivers, streams, and deltas, as you can see from this picture. Okay, so we start off with the geographic setting of China, and we're looking at the rivers. It has rivers, it has a plain or flat land for food, and the southern China, in terms of climate, has wet monsoons, very similar to India's climate. Northern China has dry monsoons. So half of China receives winds, dry winds, and the other half of China receives wet winds with moisture for their crops. So there are also geographic barriers that kind of isolate China, especially in ancient times, from the rest of the world. These geographic barriers cut China off from other lands. Chinese people only knew about the nomadic people to the north and west of the country. As a result of these natural barriers on either side, they thought they were the only people in the world, and therefore they called themselves the Middle Kingdom. The rivers, very important to every civilization. China had two main rivers. The Huanghe, or Yellow River, gets its name from loess, or yellow brownish soil that it gave to the land, which you see here in this picture at the bottom, which really gave it the nutrients it needed to grow food. And the Yangtze River, which is in the south, gave water and fertility to the land as well. Now, these rivers sometimes would present problems, therefore China's sorrow. Sometimes the rivers brought too much flooding, and it would come quickly, and many people would lose their homes. Thousands of people drowned as a result of these floods. So the Chinese had to learn how to control the flooding. So they built dikes, which is a term which means protective walls, along the banks of the river. Sometimes this loess would get so high on the water level that it would actually break the dikes, and the water would go through. Well, as early as 5000 BC, historians believe that the farming settlements first appeared along the rivers. The Shang dynasty was the first civilization in 1700 BC, and this dynasty was known for inventing bronze, the first cities, and a uniform system of writing. The Chinese family is extremely important in understanding the culture of China. The family was the most important unit, or the center of life. Many Chinese households contained many generations living together, and we call this extended family. In other words, grandparents would live with parents, would also live with their grandchildren, their aunts, their uncles. The status of each person depended on their age and gender. The oldest male was the one that had most of the power and privileges. After the oldest male died, all land and money was divided among his sons. Women had to respect all the males in the family, their fathers, their husbands, brothers, and sons. And also, when a woman married, she left her home to live with her husband's family. Names, very interesting in China. This was the first civilization to actually use two names, such as we do in our country. However, the last name is used first, and then the first name, because the last name is the family name, and that was most important to the Chinese people. Okay, now what do we remember from this section? The first point is the climate. Remember that China has a monsoon climate, such like India, dry winds in the winter, and wet rains and winds in the summer. Now, what is the geography of China? Well, we have to remember the natural barriers. We have the Himalayan mountains, which cut off China from the rest of the world. And for this reason, Chinese thought of themselves as the Middle Kingdom. Also, the Huanghe and the Yangtze rivers gave fertile soil, or loess, another term, yellow-brownish soil, to create a food surplus. The Chinese created dikes, or protective walls, that held back the floodwater. Now, how did the first Chinese cities develop? Historians feel that by 5000 BC, the first farming settlements began to develop. By 1700 BC, China had its first dynasty, the Shang, which invented the first cities, bronze, and a unified writing code. How important was the family in Chinese culture? The family was the most important unit, and the extended family, which are many generations of the family living together under the same roof. Power was always given to the eldest male.